Today, I'm going to be talking about the exotic glaive, the Edge of Intent, and what makes it stand out from the rest of the glaives. And then, we're going to be going over a build that I've been using for this glaive that plays into its strengths and makes up for its weaknesses, to make a super fun, unique, and deadly build. But before we get into that, my name is Mr. Butterslayer, and if you end up enjoying this video or getting anything out of it, a like and subscribe is hugely appreciated. It means a lot to me if you do. Alright, let's get into this. And for the build I'll be going over, you can definitely use it with a legendary glaive if you want, but it just won't be quite as effective. So I'll leave a timestamp down in the description if you just want to skip to the build. So what makes the Edge of Intent so special in PvP compared to the other glaives? Well, it's definitely not the exotic perk. That's sadly pretty much useless. After over 4,500 kills on this glaive, I've used the healing turret about 4 times and it's been kinda helpful once, so I would just ignore that perk for now. What actually makes the Edge of Intent so good is the fact that it's the only high impact glaive in the game right now, which makes it do 15 more damage per shot than other glaives. And it also has the best base range, airborne effectiveness, and the second best shield duration. And you might be thinking, what's so great about 15 extra damage per shot? Well, it makes it so a lot of primaries and abilities do just enough damage to make an enemy low enough to be cleaned up by the glaive. Like a 140 or a 120 hand cannon, you'll need to hit a body shot against them to make them low enough to be cleaned up by the glaive, against lower resilience players. But probably one of the best weapons to pair with the Edge of Intent will be a medium to hard hitting pulse rifle, like the Syncopation or the Messenger, since they only need to hit a body shot to make even 10 resilience players low enough to be able to finish off with the glaive. And that extra 15 damage per shot is going to help out a lot more than you'd think in random situations, like when team shotting or facing an enemy that has healing, overshields, or damage resist, where you end up being able to do just enough damage to finish him off. Now, since the Edge of Intent is actually a craftable exotic, you have a few options to choose from on how you want the glaive to feel. Alright, for the haft, we have 2 really good options. Ballistic tuning if you want max range, which is going to make your glaive shots feel a little more consistent and easy to hit. And then we have tempered truss rod if you want high handling so you can quickly swap to and from your glaive. And then for the magazine, we also have 2 good options to choose from. Either accurized rounds for more range, or swap mag for a faster weapon swapping. And then finally for the stock, we only really get one good option to choose from, and that's going to be short action stock, which is going to give us a bunch of handling. Now, I personally use tempered truss rod and accurized rounds on my glaive for a lot more handling and a little bit extra range. But I also have a friend that really likes to play completely into range, so it all depends on how you want the glaive to feel. And then you could also play into shield duration by using a different haft, but I wouldn't really recommend it since the shield duration on this glaive is already so good. And to be able to get this glaive, you're going to need to be on a warlock and do all the quests on the evidence board, which is in the enclave on Mars. And if you've already gotten the hunter or titan exotic glaive, then you have a chance of getting the blueprint to craft the Edge of Intent from the Wellspring activity. Alright, now let's get into the build. First off, we're going to be on Dawnblade, and then for our super, you can use either one, but I prefer Well of Radiance because it works really well with the glaive as an aggressive super. And then for your class ability, well, this also just kind of depends on which one you want to use, but you're going to be in the air a lot for this build, so Phoenix Dive can definitely be a really good option. And then for the melee, we're going to be using Celestial Fire, because when it's paired with the Fragment Ember of Torches, we can easily get Radiant active from a distance, and it just tends to be more consistent than Incendiary Snap. And now for the grenade, we have Firebolts, paired with the Touch of Flame aspect, which increases the range and amount of players the Firebolt can hit. What makes these grenades really amazing, especially with this build since they work perfectly for weakening an enemy around a corner for an easy one-hit cleanup with the glaive. But if you're using the legendary glaive, this combo is only going to work if an enemy has less than 5 resilience, or if you let them burn from the grenade for a few seconds and then finish them off. So this is kind of a big reason why I recommend the Edge of Intent for this build. Since it does slightly more damage, you're guaranteed to get a kill with this combo. And then for the second aspect slot, we're going to be using Icarus Dash, which is going to allow us to be really aggressive on people that we've weakened with our grenade. And it's just a really great tool for movement overall. And now for our fragments, we're going to start off with Ember of Ashes to increase the burning effect from our melees and our grenades. And then we have Ember of Singing, so whenever we burn an enemy, we're going to get our class ability back faster. And then we have Ember of Char for extra discipline, which is going to be super important for this build because we want to have our grenade up as much as possible. Last of all, we have Ember of Torches, so we can get Radiant whenever we hit an enemy with our melee ability. Now for the weapons, we're of course going to be using the Edge of Intent, Unless you don't have it, then a legendary glaive can still work, but it's just not going to be quite as good. Now for the primary to pair with this build, you can honestly use just about anything. And of course there's the popular primaries like high impact pulse rifles and 140 hand cannons, which pair great with this build. But I've even found success in pairing SMGs, auto rifles, scout rifles, and even a bow with this build. So I'd recommend just trying a few things out and find out what you like the best. Now for the exotic armor, we're actually going to be using the Wings of Sacred Dawn, which is going to make it so when aiming weapons while mid-air will become suspended there for a few seconds, while also improving our airborne accuracy, reducing incoming flinch, and granting us damage resistance. Also, weapon hits are going to extend this effect's duration, and it's also going to provide a plus 50 to our airborne effectiveness stat to all of our weapons. Alright, now just sitting suspended mid-air might not sound great at first, but if you're able to time it well and use it properly with Icarus Dash, it'll open up a whole new way to be aggressive in air, while also giving you a super good way to bait and counter players who push you. Even simply floating out of sight above a door or an entrance can completely shut an enemy down as they push. And even if they catch on to what you're doing, it's just going to make them hesitant to push in. Also, almost all counters to glaive shields are things that need to be on the ground or walls, like Wither Horde, Cold Snaps, most grenades, certain melee abilities. So just by floating, you can completely shut down people's attempts to counter your blocking with a glaive. And don't forget that Wings of Sacred Dawn also gives you extra damage resistance while blocking in the air. Now there is one problem with this build. For some reason, having giant flaming wings and a 50-foot long flaming staff tends to attract a lot of attention. But it can actually end up being really helpful. If you're able to push with a teammate that's on the ground, it's going to make the enemies focused on one player, leaving them completely open to the other one. So it's pretty much like going on a flank from the side, but you're just floating in the air. So is this build actually good, and is it worth using at a competitive level? Well, it's definitely not as easy as just putting on the most popular weapons at the time, but if you can use it properly, you can absolutely destroy people with this build. And personally, this build is one of my top choices when going into Trials of Osiris or the competitive playlists, and I've actually beaten a lot of really good teams using this build, so yes, I think it can definitely be competitive. One big problem with this build is the fact that glaive hit registration can be a little bit buggy right now, but they are supposed to be fixing it soon, so it shouldn't be a problem for too much longer. And they are also going to be nerfing the damage resist when blocking with a glaive, but if they fix the hit registration, I think that overall these changes are going to be really good for this build and just make it better. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you ended up trying out this build or the glaive, let me know in the comments down below what you thought. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I'll see you all next time.